Hey everybody, welcome back to Low Friction Friday. Hope you've had a great week. And all right, today's main video will be on the detail review for ceramic speed wet conditions lubricant, so I can knock that one out before I head off. And I've got some fun low friction news just prior to that. But very quickly, thank you for the comments and support on last week's video. I was not sure if that level of sharing was going to be just sort of weird or well received. I think it's been the latter, so that's great. So I'll look to release the 23-24 financials in probably around about September, October when I get that report from the accountants. And we'll see if we've trended up from last year. But the main theme is that, as we could see, whilst we're not making, money hand over fist, we are viable. We're, making positive cash flow. And that's the main thing when, it is really difficult to run a testing model business and actually make any money at all, which is really why there's not a lot of testing out there, certainly not any independent open testing. All other testing facilities, it is 100% private. So we are very, very unique in the cycling space with what we do. And obviously, thank you to everybody's support because it's at the end of the day, without your support, we wouldn't be successful and we wouldn't be, viable, and what we're doing just wouldn't be able to happen. So yeah, thanks everybody, because having a bunch of fun doing what we're doing, and we'll keep working hard to make sure that the information and resources that we generate from the testing are of great use to you, saving watts and friction and wear and costs, and also it's of great value to the manufacturers looking to have their products verified, as well as of course holding some perhaps not so great players and products to some level of account. All right, I'll try not to ramble too much today. Let's get into low friction news. Alrighty, it's not normally news when there's I guess a new immersive wax product out on the market, because there's actually like a lot that have sprung up with the rise of immersive waxing becoming, much more mainstream. In fact, it's really, I think, quite mainstream now versus what it was 5 to 10 years ago. So yeah, a lot of startups have just jumped on that bandwagon and just pumped out a wax claiming whatever they like with various modifiers and who knows what wax base. So you will find no shortage of those at all if you do some Google surfing. It's a little bit more of interest when, I guess, a major legacy player that I guess hasn't been, in ZFC's view, amazing in the lubricant front for a while, because they potentially haven't had anything sort of updated for about 2 decades. When they move from their sort of old legacy style into a immersive wax and wax strip lineup, that's a bit more newsworthy. So let's have a bit of a look at one that's caught my interest. Alrighty, so we have Finish Line, really, I guess, moving out of the past and catching up to date with an immersive wax product. So they've got their Halo Hot Wax. So that's quite something. Yeah, I've been, I guess, critical of Finish Line for a fair while. My concern with Finish Line products had always been that really they're just living on legacy brand name, and that I don't think any of their, I guess, sort of previous existing product line has seen any meaningful update or, testing or R&D for probably 2 decades or so. And when you've got, manufacturers working very genuinely to bring out great products in this space, you just don't stay competitive if your product is a couple of decades or more old. And from the testing of, I've tested 3 Finish Line products to date. One was not terrible, one was pretty bad, and one is the worst drip lubricant that we've tested to date. So kind of match the concerns that we've had with regards to, I guess, where they sit and where their, I guess, R&D and investment in their lubricant lineup has been. So, I think this is a great move by Finish Line, and I really hope that it's a top performing product. It's priced pretty premium, so not crazy. It's sort of in line with really, say, Silka Hot Melt. We'll duck out they have a wax drip version. Now that is priced really premium, so $69.99 for 120 ml of a wax drip. That's right up there, and a bit similar with their brand new wet lubricant. So they've got a Halo wet lube as well that's also $69.99. So that's really something in terms of pricing. So it's going to want to be a very high performing product. Now, it may shock you, based on the awesome relationship I currently have with Finish Line, that they haven't contacted Zero Friction Cycling to get the products tested. But obviously I'm going to write to them and ask them a whole bunch of questions, because I've got a whole bunch of questions about the marketing claims and what they have that sit behind these marketing claims to, I guess, justify what they're putting out here, and also the pricing. And I guess really we'll see how that goes first before I make any decision about what I may or may not test in the future on my own volition. I'd really like to get something substantive from Finish Line first. We'll have a look at a couple of the claims because they're a little bit different than some of the other products out there on the market, and yeah, I'd just really like to get from them some detail behind that. I'll just duck back to the wax. Okay, so I mean, it starts off all fairly normal. They're using highly refined paraffin base, so that's great. There should, in theory, be only so far wrong you can go using that base and some quality friction modifier additives. So in theory, even without testing, it should be either really good or really, really good. You know, we can get weird surprises, but just if I had to place a bet, I would bet that it's going to be a high-performing product. It should be really odd if it's not. Finish Line do still have their penchant for making claims around ceramic, and I'd really like to get a lot more from them about that, because to date, nothing claiming ceramic has tested to be anything remotely good at all. And my concern has always been that ceramic is just a marketing exercise. Where are the manufacturers showing, look, here's our product tested via X test and its performance, and here it is with the ceramic additives, and you can see the clear jump in performance. That has been provided by no one ever. And the mental picture that it creates, or that they, I guess, paint in their claims, especially on drip lubricants, is that you have ceramic particles forming a ceramic coating on your chain. I mean, how much are they adding, and how is it forming that coating when it's in a liquid? It's completely different to what boron nitride or ceramic is typically used for when it's used as a lubricant. It's typically used in, say, a spray for injection molding, so that there is an actual boron nitride film there, so you can remove the part from the mold. If they are just adding a tiny or token amount of ceramic into a drip lubricant, it is not forming any ceramic coating at all on your chain, and the wear rates of those products are justifying that concern. So yeah, I really want to know more. There are some other new things, even so using obviously tungsten. I assume it's tungsten disulfide, or a version of tungsten disulfide, which is fairly common in a lot of the top products now. This one's new though, so spherical tungsten, featuring a proprietary hollow core to reduce vibrational friction caused by high torque pedaling. Now that's out there. The tungsten particles would be very, very small. I mean, typically we're talking nanoscale is what most, like say Silka and M-Speed Wax are using. If you have a hollow core and a nanoscale particle, how are you testing that is reducing vibration? I would love to know what they've done there, and I can't wait to get from input from some other manufacturers on this claim that may know a bit more about this than I do. But that's out there. All right, the ceramic I've covered. If we duck back and have a look at their wet lube, because that's got a new claim I've never seen before as well. So the wet lube is powered by 3 elite grade ingredients. The spherical tungsten, which is seen, the ceramic was seen, but gas to liquid. I've never seen gas to liquid as an ingredient claim or a performance claim. And yeah, they're stating here gas to liquid is a hydrodynamic film, fluid film, helps minimize drivetrain noise, dramatically reduces friction, repels water, and maintains viscosity in extreme temperatures. Is that extreme high or extreme low, or both, which would be something? I don't know what that is, but they got a whole bunch of films going on between their gas to liquid and their ceramic and all that. So yeah, there's a whole lot going on in amongst their claims here that we'll see what I get back. My current bet is I will get 0, but I will try, and I'll update on what Finish Line can give to me that explain a bit more about their marketing claims on the products. Because on the surface, they're making some pretty exciting claims. Alrighty, so we have from Ybn the new Mk12 chain. Now this is made specifically for the SRAM flat top systems, and really I guess the main reason why people will look for I guess a chain different to SRAM's own flat top chains for their SRAM flat top system is simply speed. Whilst the SRAM flat top chains have not been terribly slow, they certainly haven't set the charts alight with being up there with the fastest chains tested to date. So they've been a decent enough amount off the mark there that some have been looking for a faster chain. So really to date, the fastest chains ever tested have been like the Dura-Ace 11 speed, Ybn SLA 12 speed, the Campy Record 12 speed, and now also this one as really a 10 out of 10 speed ranking, which is a good bit higher than where SRAM's flat tops are. So it's also going to be, I guess, a bit cheaper than some of the T-type options, that's for sure. But bear in mind, I'm going to be adding this one to the list of chains I am way behind on wear durability testing. My guess, just based off what we know, I don't think that this will match, especially the top couple of tiers of SRAM's chain levels with regards to wear life. Any of the chains that have SRAM's hard chrome treatment, really SRAM's hard chrome sets the industry benchmark with regards to wear resistance. So typically their top tier chains in the flat top systems and also the Eagle mountain bike have quite exceptional wear durability. So they really have that going for them, but they're just lacking the speed. So this will be a great choice for, I guess, avid recreational and professional racers. And potentially also for some that are looking for some different colors in their life on to sort of the chain can really pimp your bike a bit. It's sort of the center of your drivetrain, so there'll be that aspect too. But yeah, there we go. It's about time that there has been an aftermarket flat top option. SRAM are obviously going to say that you officially need to run SRAM chains or you are at risk of warranty void and so on. But aftermarket options do exist for systems for a reason. Alrighty, so product description. For those riding in consistently wet conditions, our new UFO drip for wet conditions has been uniquely developed to maximize the benefits of a wax chain lubricant while resisting deterioration through wet riding conditions. 100ml bottle, 8ml or 8 gram difference by weight per coating, which is something we don't see often in descriptions, non-toxic, PFAS-free, and biodegradable formula. I'll skip down to installation. So for new chains, or for the first application, start with a fully clean and dry chain. Apply UFO drip wet conditions chain coating directly to the chain rollers over the cassette while rotating the chain slowly to coat the entire length of the chain twice. Next, apply UFO coating to the inside of the chain along the rollers on the bottom span of the chain and coat the entire length of the chain twice. A complete coating will use about 8ml or an 8 gram difference by weight. For best penetration, continue rotating the cranks for 30 to 60 seconds to ensure the wax can get down between the chain rollers and links. For best durability and clean performance, let the UFO chain coating dry overnight. It is not suggested to wipe off the wax from the surface of the chain. It is always suggested after wet riding conditions to clean the chain and reapply a fresh UFO chain coating. If it has been a dry ride, wipe off any surface dust with a clean towel and apply UFO coating to the chain links above the cassette along the length of the chain twice. Let's just have a quick look at their own video that demonstrates the application, because that will sort of, I guess, become a bit relevant as well as I go through the review.
For first application or after a full drivetrain clean, our recommended amount is 8 grams. Apply UFO drip wet directly onto the chain rollers over the cassette while rotating the chain slowly backwards to coat the entire length of the chain twice. Next, apply the UFO drip wet inside the chain along the rollers on the bottom span of the chain and coat the entire length of the chain twice. It is also super important to keep spinning the cranks to get the UFO drip wet into the chain rollers and links. And keep spinning after you're done applying for 30 to 60 seconds more. Let the UFO...
Just take note of, I guess, the amount of excess that you can see there on the pulley wheel.
UFO drip wet dry overnight to let the liquid caviar evaporate from the wax, leaving just the good stuff on the chain. No need to wipe off the chain to remove surface wax. When it's time to reapply without cleaning the chain, you... also you can sort of see the excess on the chain ring is
quite a bit as well. And if you have a look at the cogs on the cassette, you can also see there's quite a bit of excess on those parts there.
You can apply the amount as you like, as this is only a topping off. Always reapply after each spray down or wash. After a super long and wet and harsh ride, you may need to clean your chain with UFO drivetrain cleaner. When you have cleaned the drivetrain, you will need to apply a full coating of UFO drip wet again, like it was the first application.
Right, just while we're on their website, saw a fun testimonial from Pink Bike, who aren't normally, I guess, big on chain lubes and watt savings, but good to see them maybe getting into looking at this stuff. But this I found really interesting, so I can confirm it's one of the least gunky wet lubes. Now, I don't know what they're normally using or comparing it to, but for sure from my test, this was pretty much the gunkiest lubricant that I've ever seen. You could see from the video, the application amount, it is very heavy, and this is designed to stick and sort of not go anywhere or be abraded off. So I mean, any lubricant, one application, things can only get so bad, but for sure, any amount of reapplication, things get really gunky really quickly. Some of you may have seen, I guess, a couple of the pics we just flashed up as a prelude on some previous vids, but yeah, it's I don't know where that would have come from, but I'll have some, I guess, evidence to back my contesting of that statement. All right, and just lastly, I've been having a bit of a flick around, and I guess kind of unusual, I can't find any real specifics around the claims, so it is granted, very difficult to make any real specific guidance about how long a product is going to last in wet, harsh conditions, because they are so variable. But I was still kind of expecting some kind of attempt. So there's just kind of nil nix nada. Just obviously it's a wet conditions lubricant for riding the chain in wet conditions. So it's fairly vague on the claims front, aside from also just claiming to be the world's fastest drip lubricant. Alrighty, so for the main test, just with regards to the application, I did discuss with Ceramic Speed, I guess the application amount, because I've got 3,000 kilometers of testing through the dry blocks before we get to wet contamination block 4. And so if I followed their instructions with regards to the application amount, there would just be, so much product and so many bottles used that things would be pretty crazy. So those initial application instructions are followed for the first application still, because we want to make sure that we're doing the best job to get past any initial penetration issues on a perfectly clean chain. After that, then each reapplication through the remainder of the dry blocks until we got to wet contamination block 4, I was applying a single application to the top and the bottom of the chain. And yeah, that was still a fair bit. And then I would go to the double application each time during the wet contamination block 4. So that was, I guess, just working out something sort of sane and reasonable for the main test. Right, let's skip to the results. Okay, for block 1, it's returned a result of 12.3% wear throughout that. So that's sitting pretty much in the middle of all wax strips tested to date. It's basically 5th out of 10 wax strip lubricants tested. So it's showing that it's got some level of initial penetration issues. I guess not entirely unexpected, as it is a little bit of a stickier, tackier wax. So it is always a challenge for wax strip lubricants to I guess get past that tricky penetration issue, and yeah, just not get hung up on that tiny gap between the inner plate link shoulders. And it's something that the products up here worked really hard to get past. That would have been an aim, obviously, for Ceramic Speed with this product, and they would have tested a lot to try to make sure they're getting past that. But I've got a little bit of a different result there than I think they've achieved in their own testing. So we'll probably have a bit of a chat about that. But yeah, unfortunately, some initial wear did show up in block 1 for my test here, showing that there's potentially a bit of an issue on that initial penetration side of things. Okay, having a look at block 2, the dry contamination block. It slipped down a bit. It's now sitting at 7th out of 10 wax strip lubricants tested. My theory behind that is that it is a little bit tacky and there's a lot of wax on there. So some dust is sticking and you can't really, wipe that surface dust off very easily. So I think that some is getting dragged in on the next heavy relubes. And once it's sort of getting inside in the wax, it's pretty well stuck in there. So yeah, this generally, obviously, a wax strip strength, like a good wax strip, it is much more contamination resistant to dust than your wet lubricants that will pretty much, obviously, every particle of dust will stick on contact. This one, it's the amount and its sort of stickiness to stay on during the wet is maybe counting against it a little bit in dry dust conditions as well. Right, when we go to block 3, so that's moving to no contamination again. It's sort of giving the lubricant a chance to demonstrate if it's able to clear some of the contamination that it accumulated through block 2, because many lubricants do claim that they clean as they lubricate. There's not really any flush cleaning going on, so it's basically the same wear rate in block 3. So it's kind of confirming that what was attracted or stuck and became part of the lubricant in block 2, it's pretty well landlocked in there and didn't go anywhere in block 3 because just that same wear rate continued. So it's now sitting in basically 8th out of 10 wax strips tested. Alrighty, moving into wet conditions block 4, which is where we really want to see this one start to shine. It's moved back up a place, but it hasn't really rocketed to the top of the wax strips. So it's just moved back up to 7th place out of the 10 wax strips tested with a 41.1% wear rate result. The lowest wear rate result to date in block 4 has been the True Tension Tungsten All Weather at 31%. So yeah, it's about a third off the top tested wax strip in that block 4. So it was again, like I guess the other blocks preceding, was hoping for more. And really its last hope is the single application longevity test, where it gets, a fresh start, so it's not carrying any, abrasive contamination into that test like it will have been carrying a bit in there from the previous 3 testing blocks when you go into the wet block 4. The single application longevity test, it's a fresh chain, fresh reapplication as per instructions, and then it's just hit with that test block and we get to see how it compares. But this gives us usually a very strong prelude, and it's not given us the strongest indications, unfortunately. If we have a look at just sorting by block 5, so that is how was it able to clear all the crap that it was hit with through wet contamination block 4, and it was able to do something. It's quite interesting that, just visually a lot of the product was being washed out. Now, it just could be that there's a whole lot of excess because there's so much applied. But it could be that some of the stuff is coming out when it's being hit with all that water, and that there's, not as much carryover as we might expect based on what we saw with block 2 and block 3. But yeah, still it was okay, 23.7%. That's not a bad recovery after what it was hit with in block 4, and it's still basically sitting then in 7th place out of the 10 wax strips tested to date. If you can have a bit of a look through on the data table. There's certainly some variance in the wax strips as to how much they clear the contamination out after block 4 for their block 5 wear result. Some were able to reset quite well, and some really didn't show too much of a wear drop at all. So it can be a thing with wax strips where what gets in there can get pretty stuck in there. So that's the individual blocks. If we just have a quick flick up to, the cumulative wear result across the main tests, which is the 5 blocks, finished with a total wear rate of 109.7%. So that means it was basically a little bit over the 0.5% wear allowance for the test, which is your recommended wear replacement mark for chains. And it remains in 7th place out of 10 10 wax strip lubricants tested overall. So, not really where I would have wanted to see a ceramic speed product, but again, I must stress that this is not the test that this product is designed for. It is not really, I don't believe, to be used as your daily training lube, just in case you get caught out in the wet, because it is just so much wax that you are applying to your chain that's quite tacky and is not going anywhere, and we'll get a look at that soon. Alrighty, jumping to the single application longevity for the extreme conditions. So this test did not go how I was hoping either, by quite a big margin. You know, it was just, I hope you've got some video to be able to show. It does just wash out still pretty easy, so it's better than the first bottle of this that I tested, but it's still really not where it should be. So I don't know if there's still something happening with the product potentially changing in transit. It's something that obviously I've got to discuss with Ceramic Speed. But yeah, I mean, it's performed overall sort of lower than its all conditions, and Ceramic Speed, they don't muck around. They obviously put a huge amount of testing into this product as part of its development. They developed their own pretty fancy machine to test wax drips and oils through their own wet conditions test. And they found that a lot of products came up quite wanting, and that in their testing, really the only other wax drip lubricant that was holding a candle to their own was Smooth, which is genuinely a really sort of great lasting wax strip in all conditions. So they've got some really genuine testing sitting behind their product, from their fancy lab in Denmark, and it's testing that, as you know, I can really put a lot of faith and trust in. So we've got a really big mismatch between, what's happened from their lab that's sort of passed to have a product that really kicks butt in their wet conditions test, to what I've seen with my test. And my only theory at the moment is that perhaps something is changing with a product in transit, because there's a pretty big misalignment there. Just in case if you're not sure what these different sort of columns mean, in short, there's a wear allowance for the single application longevity test, which is basically 0.1% of a chain's recommended wear allowance, which is normally 0.5%. We're not going to push it to 0.5 because the treatment would be so done by then. By the time you get to 0.1% of the recommended wear allowance, the treatment is done. So that's as far as we need to go. To wear rate jump point, if a lubricant basically has a jump point, what that means is that the wear rate at the certain check intervals was not really showing too much change, and then we saw a sudden jump, and so we saw a jump, but it wasn't yet at the wear allowance total for the test. So we still had some wear allowance to go before we reach end of test, but there was clearly a point where there's a jump in where the lubricant treatment is effectively done. So despite the fact it's got some allowance left, we know that it's basically done by that time. So it can be, for instance, that an immersive wax, they tend to hold steady for a good period of time, and then will have a very sudden jump. Whereas especially like the dry SAL tests, a wet lubricant might just have a very, very small amount of wear increase every check measure, just on and on and on, until we finally hit the wear allowance. So some products don't have a jump point, and some products have quite a distinct jump point that denotes where their treatment lifespan is done, more so than the total kilometers to reach their wear allowance. Hopefully that made some sense. The other columns here, the real world adjusted kilometers, because this is a machine test, machine kilometers are not the same as real world riding, and if we have a look at some of the results from the dry SAL tests, we can see, look, no lubricant is going to last 9,000 kilometers on a single treatment. Machine kilometers are just not the same, so dividing it by 3 is, I guess, our best approximation of sort of relating our machine test kilometers across to what it might be in someone's actual riding. Obviously any test cannot mimic your actual riding, but it's a benchmark test, so the results are relative. If your riding is harsher or less harsh, then the relative performance between lubricants will carry over accordingly. So alrighty, let's have a look at some pics. Alright, let's have a bit of a look at just what I was saying with regards to being washed out. This is after I've reset the machine and we are doing the extreme single application longevity test. So it's had the double application top and bottom. in a 12-hour set time. And let's just have a look at the video of the first application of the water for the SAL test. Don't worry about my mumbling in the background on the video. They were just some notes to myself. Now I can say that like that amount of product coming off during a water application, it is not normal. Now I know we do apply a lot, so it's perhaps something that there's going to be more excess than normal coming off, but for a product that's really meant to stay stuck to the chain so that it has longevity in wet conditions, I guess that was unexpected, and I just don't think that that's how it is supposed to go. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to read this with Ceramic Speed. All right, lucky last to wrap up the detail review. It's just the cost to run. I won't really spend any time on this because overall, the wear rates as we saw were, they were not terrible, but they were pretty average. But combined with that, it also has a fairly high cost for the actual lubricant because it does have such a high usage rate. So it's not crazy expensive for the product itself. It's certainly, I guess, not a budget lube, but you're just using so much of it that it's not going to be competitive from a cost to run perspective. The only way would be if it had extremely low wear to sort of offset that high lubricant usage cost, which unfortunately it didn't. So I will try to get the latest data file up onto the website hopefully over the weekend. So if it's not there by the time you see this video, if you wanted to have a bit of a deeper look, it should be there by sometime over the weekend. And yeah, let's wrap it up. Alrighty, so key takeaways from all of that. It's a bit tricky because I think just straight up, we've got a really big disconnect between the test results that we've attained here versus the test results that Ceramic Speed have from their Denmark research lab. And, I've been dealing with Ceramic Speed for so long now, and I know the guys there. They got a lot of very smart people indeed in their, obviously, product development, and they got a really smart guy running the test lab. And when you've got all the toys and you've got the resources and the staff, I just know that there is no way this product would have gone to production unless, they've nailed what they wanted out of that product. And I know from, chatting with the lab test guy that, it was pitched against, really all the top, wet lube competition that could possibly hang on through their wet conditions test that they were doing, as well as the top wax strips. And the only product that really held a candle to their own CS wet conditions was Smooth. So all the others were washed out and washed off, well before the Ceramic Speed wet conditions lube was. So, there's a big issue going on somewhere between, the product how it's performing over there in their test lab and what's happening by the time it gets to me here. My leading theory is that something is happening in transit, but if that's happening in transit to me, then it would be happening in transit to a lot of other people around the world as well. So yeah, it's going to just be a big, thing we have to try to sort of work out what might be going on. It's the second time, sorry, a bit background noise. Second time I've tested the product. So the first bottle of Ceramic Speed Wet that I tested was so bad off the bat that there was clearly an issue. So we halted that. But yeah, it's not doing what this product should be doing at all. I guess big issue of the fact that the wet conditions lube is not performing in the wet aside, my still broader concern is, who is the product for? I think I mentioned on a previous vid, is it really expected that people are going to use this product on a chain that they prep, before they go and ride on a wet ride day? Are people planning that far ahead? Or is it going to be a product that people are expected, to be able to use normally as their, daily training and riding lube? and if they get caught in a wet ride, that it's got its back, or got their back, sorry, and it's not going to let them down. Now, I suspect that from Ceramic Speed side, it's probably, maybe the latter, but from what we see here, the application amount is, overall so heavy, and it's quite tacky and sticky, so it does gunk up. It, really like nothing else that I've tested to date, and it's the toughest clean of any product that I've tested to date. So it would become a bit of a drivetrain maintenance nightmare if you were using it as your general training lubricant. And then you've got, the running cost of a product that's really not that cheap, but one that you need to put so much on. So even if you're not doing that double coating, still a full length coating, top span and bottom span, that's a heavy application, and you will rip through it even in your dry conditions riding. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure still of the aim. So that's another point that I'll be running through with Ceramic Speed, like what their thoughts are on how people should use it, and what they may have in response to my concerns there. So alas, at this time though, yeah, it's a miss on its design brief on whichever one of those design briefs it may fall into, and we can't recommend this product at this time. I will work to get to the bottom of what's going on, and we'll see if there is a test take 3 in the second half of this year. But yeah, to allocate the resources and time to do that, we are really going to need to work out what's going on. All right, I am again fading, and it's late, and I'm sorry if this got more rambly as it went on. But yeah, have a great weekend, and I've got a bit of a plan on what next week's vid might be. Might be something a little bit different. I'll try to get to it. It is really pushing at the moment. I think, as I mentioned before, it's just not only trying to push through a lot of tests and a lot of prep before I head off, but it's also a mini-me school holiday, so I'm zooming around here, there and everywhere, and losing about 2 hours a day as well in transit on stuff. So it's yeah, it's a blur. So yeah, I'm even worse on my vid prep time as well than normal. So if I can't get to it next week, yeah, that will be why I'm just too far behind. All right, yeah. Thanks for bearing with me again on this one. Hope you still found that interesting, and I will try to catch you next week if at all I can.